Thanks everyone for dialing in. So look, we might get started. And again, just a reminder, if you could pop yourself on mute. My name is Toshi Kawaguchi and I'm the Associate Director here at Study New South Wales. Welcome to our first webinar on the New South Wales International Student Survey, where we'll be presenting some of the first quarter results that we've obtained. So thank you very much for dialing in, for your interest in this. Lyndall, if I could ask you to move to the next slide, please. And again, yes, that one.
There we go. I've just muted everybody just to let you know. But I've muted you, Toshi.
That's
right,
fine.
Thank you.
No worries. So Lyndall, if you could pop us to the next slide, please.
Yep, there we are.
And before I go any further, allow me also to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are gathered today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the land and waters of New South Wales. Next slide. So again, welcome everyone. This is the agenda that we propose to cover today. For those of you who do know Peter Mackey, you'll realise that I'm not here. Sadly, Peter has had to step out at the last minute, so I'm standing in for him during this webinar. We are recording today's proceedings and we'll be making the recording available as well online. Today, as you know, we will be talking through the first quarter results of an International Student Sentiment Tracker survey that was issued earlier this year. Edified has been running that survey at a national level, and today we are lucky enough to have a New South Wales specific breakdown of those results. So I will be shortly turning to Lyndall Jacker from the Edified Education team to delve a little bit deeper into those results. After that, I propose to spend a little bit of time talking a little bit more about the support that we are offering at a state level for international students. We will have some time to cover off the questions that you may have. And I would encourage all of you to use the chat function in the Zoom webinar to highlight any questions that you might have. We'll try and answer some of these directly into the chat as we go along, and we'll draw out some of the key themes in that last section of the webinar to answer your questions. And then we'll hopefully look to close promptly at 1:30. So Lyndall, if I could get you, thank you very much. So up to the next slide. Now, just as a preface, I wanted to let you know that this International Student Sentiment Tracker is the product of a national partnership excuse me, between study cluster bodies right across Australia. We have been collaborating and coming together as a group under the banner of the Study Australia Partnership to share and address common marketing and communication opportunities at a national level. We all have a vested interest in making sure that Australia continues to maintain its status as a leading international education destination. And this grouping under the Study Australia Partnership is one way in which we're helping to achieve this by all being on the same page, coming together to share lessons and collaborate on opportunities like this. Clearly understanding how international students are feeling is a really important part of responding to their needs. And so this survey is helping feed into the various programs and initiatives that we are developing at a national, but also a state level to support international students and the international education sector more broadly. Now, as I mentioned, Lyndall is available with us today from the Edified team and will take us through some of those survey results for July. We will also be doing 3 more surveys, including one that is currently out in the field in November. And we'll be bringing together this group to present the results of those surveys for each quarter. So a little bit more on that towards the end of this presentation. But for now, let's get to the matter at hand. And I'll invite Lyndall to start talking a little bit more about what we found out following the survey in July.
Great. Thank you so much, Toshi. And hello, everybody. And thank you for coming along today. It's certainly my privilege to be sharing the incredible feedback that we got from our international students and with a particular focus, of course, on New South Wales. We'll be covering off really these 4 topics that you can see on the screen. Now, before I do get into that, just to step back for a moment, and Toshi's covered off a little bit about the survey, but this is the first of 4 quarters. And our goal is to understand how our international students are feeling and then how they're sourcing their information. Now, in Q1, the focus was around COVID-19. So again, some of the questions are specifically related to that. But the key topic of focus is going to change each quarter, and we'll look at that, what's happening currently at the end of the presentation. A couple of points I did want to highlight here was the results I'm sharing with you today was done on the first survey, which happened during July. So I think we've just got to be really mindful of where each of the states and territories were at with what was going on with COVID. And so this is why it's really important just to be, I'm not really going to be talking about not making any comparisons with other jurisdictions, except one slide, just to give you that feel of really where everybody was at during this. And the other thing is, incredible response that we got from our international students with nearly 7,500 responses. And that's a big thank you to Austrade, to Study New South Wales and other study destination agencies, yourselves, our sector partners, as well as our international students for actually sharing their voice and giving us their feedback. So now on to what I know we're probably really interested in is New South Wales. And again, an incredible response. We had over 2,500 international student respondents in New South Wales. This accounted for about 1/3 of the national total and is pretty similar to New South Wales' actual market share. And again, what's great was we had a real range of education sectors and nationalities where students are from, and you will get tired of me saying the word diversity, but it underpins so much of what we're talking about here in terms of the diversity of our international students. You can see that most of our respondents came from the Greater Sydney area. We did get, the others included Newcastle, Wollongong, Armidale, Lismore, Wagga Wagga. Essentially, though, those sample sizes are too small to be able to report any specific differences. So everything I'm reporting here is at a New South Wales level. In terms of just, you can see there, it's sort of, I'm showing New South Wales results versus the overall national results, just to give a little bit of comparison. But for New South Wales, we do see slightly more age between 18 to 24. And also we had a slightly higher proportion of students who have been studying in Australia since between 2018 or earlier. Now with that age group, it sort of makes sense when you look at the institution type, where are they studying? And you can see we have an above average representation from the undergraduate sector, as well as the postgraduate sector. So very university dominated, and it's less within our vocational space. So if we've got anyone who works within the vocational space, whether public or private, we'd love for you to just share the survey with your students this time round, because I think it's just so important that we can capture that student voice across all sectors. Then in terms of what country they came from, you can see, again, it's a great mix of students, slightly above average for students from Nepal and from Vietnam. You notice there, and this is a key point to make, that we had probably below average of Chinese students overall, as well as New South Wales. And we must remember this survey was just done with international students who are currently in Australia. So those who may already have returned home or couldn't enter Australia to commence or resume their studies were not part of this survey. And we know, as we're all well aware, that a high number of Chinese students had returned home, or they couldn't enter during the initial COVID-19 outbreak, and that happened during Chinese New Year. So that just gives us a little bit of context of who our students are. And now what's really important is understanding, well, how are they feeling? about their study and their life in Australia. Now, we asked them on a scale from 0, which is very negative, to 10, which is very positive, how do they currently feel about Australia as a whole? And the positive you can see there is most students have recorded on the right-hand side, so at least 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10. But the thing is, I'm putting for now, because what's really interesting is not only how they're currently feeling, but we're understanding how their feelings have changed. And when we look onto the next slide, what we see is student sentiment's quite mixed, and I am sharing a comparison to states and territories here. New South Wales is the one that I've got highlighted, and you can see about a quarter of the students actually say they feel that the Australia is getting better slightly or much better over the last 3 months. Now remember, this was back in July. So again, we're talking between March and July in terms of, you know, our worlds, all of our worlds, including our international students, worlds turned upside down. But you have got about half who felt that Australia is getting worse of students in New South Wales. And this was a relatively higher proportion than we saw for other states and territories, which really shows that the situation around COVID was different. And we just do need to be mindful that when we're just talking about this, is the importance of just focusing on New South Wales. Now, not only did we ask students about how they're feeling about Australia as a whole, we wanted to understand how they're feeling about their sentiment towards specific Australian education factors. And again, I'm showing here just the proportion who said they rated it slightly or much worse. And on the whole, most students were fairly positive around Australia's safety, security, and world-class education. No surprise, and particularly we saw this amongst postgraduates, they're more concerned about their future prospects, whether it be residency or career opportunities. And what we saw for New South Wales, we did have a slightly better, it was a high proportion who were concerned or felt their potential for future residency was getting worse. And we saw that particularly, as I mentioned, university and postgraduate students, but also students from Colombia and Pakistan. So again, we're starting just to already see those differences coming through, and just a nice, I'm adding a little couple of quotes as we go through, just to bring to life just exactly how students are feeling. Which even comes to life even more. We asked students one word to describe how they're feeling about the COVID-19 situation in Australia back in July, and this is over 1,800 international students who are in New South Wales. These were the words they used. And of course, in a word cloud, the more the word is mentioned, the bigger the word. So those keywords that we're seeing here, worried, scared, anxious, safe, stressed, concerned, a whole raft of emotions that our students are feeling. And they really do vary. And I think, again, it so much depends on the student's situation, and there's certainly no one emotional reaction that fits all students. And of course, this does have an impact on their sentiment. And even further to that one word, we were asking them about what their concerns are, and I'm going to share that in a moment. But this was just, you're going, how are your concerns impacting you? What are you feeling? And I could have presented lots of different data here, but we had the most, I must say, overwhelming response, and the level of detail and the comprehensiveness that students provided in this open-ended comment about how they're feeling, mind-boggling. And I'm just sharing 4 here because I think this starts to really capture the feeling, because almost like what you've got is there is a positive sentiment to Australia, but what's happening at a personal level underneath that it's something that we do need to be very mindful of, and we'll go through more of that as we go through. But you can just see some of the comments here, and I've drawn out some of those key themes about how they're being felt. Are they welcome in Australia as from a society, community, or government level? Down to how are they actually feeling about their personal safety, including racism, their loneliness, isolation, concerns about money, have they got a roof over their head, to that massive shift of everything moving online, which of course everybody had to work with. And again, just even these 4 comments show the diversity that we see in what students are feeling. And it's not just one factor. It really is a culmination of things that are coming through. And we can see that when we actually ask students, what are their issues? What was most concerning them? And again, no surprise here. Of course, COVID's sitting up there, and it was quite high at the time of interviewing when we did the survey for students in New South Wales, as are those issues, the impact of COVID-19, which is, around employment, managing my finances. Now, interesting, in New South Wales, students on average reported a higher number of concerns. It was average 4.2, whereas the national average was 4. And you can see there is a lot of arrows, and it's not only just the financial hardship. I think it was, responding to the changes in study, their personal well-being, as well as their family well-being. Because of course, remember, COVID was, impacting a lot of their families back in their home country. COVID was actually the #1 concern for students who are English language students, as well as those from China and Vietnam. And we did see our Nepalese students, 1 in 3 had concerns about accommodation. So again, it's such a range of what's going on depending on their personal situation. And there's just, and this is a lovely little quote from an English language student. If they weren't having that experience of improving their English, so that what did that mean for them? And then they couldn't go home as well. Now, taking how students, what their concerns were, and let me just talk you through this slide, because it's a little bit complicated. So I wanted to look at, okay, students who felt Australia is getting worse. And in New South Wales, that average was 46% felt they were getting worse. And I analysed this by what their concerns are. And just what stands out is those students, particularly, nearly 7 in 10 who feel Australia's getting worse, have a concern about their own personal safety or feeling welcome. So again, we can see that personal welfare is having a more negative impact on how they're feeling about Australia. And again, what this then starts to, we need to look at is, well, how are they accessing information? Where are they accessing it? And that's certainly where we start to look at in the next set of questions. So for their specific concerns, and I think this pack will become available because you can start to see some of the detail. The positive that we have here is that majority of students in New South Wales, they accessed information about COVID-19 and changes to their study. So well done to everybody on this call if you were involved in those communications, because they got through to students who were seeking that. Where there are more concerns, and this is a really hard area, is where students around those with financial hardships, including employment, looking at their personal well-being or accommodation, over half did not seek information, or they could not find that information. So again, it's this importance of how do we start to tailor our information to get to students who are really wanting to be able to access it in a way that they want to access. Now, there's lots here, and I'm not going to go into all that, but we will start to look at that and what New South Wales are doing at the end of this session as well. The other thing, of course, is we've looked at sentiment, and we want to understand, well, what potential impact is that having on a student's decision to stay and continue their studies in Australia? And positively, 8 in 10 students in New South Wales intend to complete their studies in Australia. Now, you'll see a little asterisk at the top there saying international students. Remember, these are the students who are currently already here. as I caveated earlier. But the reasons for students staying is very much these pull factors about our education, the lifestyle, and safety. However, again, not all students are the same. And again, it's coming back down to understanding those different cohorts. And we see nearly half of the students from China and Vietnam in New South Wales. So they can't go home due to unavailability or high cost of flight. So for some, there's push factors to remain. The other point too is we saw 1 in 10 students are unsure of their future plans. And of course, that was reflecting the uncertainty of COVID-19 in Australia during the time of surveying in July. And we actually saw that was significantly higher amongst Colombian students, where 1/4 said they weren't quite sure of what their future decision was going to be. Now, we also, of course, there was nearly 8% of students who said they intend to return home. That was either cancelling or deferring their studies or looking to complete their study online. And, different reasons, unsurprisingly, they can't afford to fund their cost of living or studying in Australia anymore. For some, it was about poor online study experience was a reason why they were looking to return home. And then others, of course, parental influence. They wanted their children to be back home where they felt that they were safer. So again, different reasons, push-pull factors that are going on there. So essentially, what we've just seen is some of the behaviour and their concerns. So what does that mean for us in terms of how are students, where are they accessing communication, what are they using? And I'll explain this chart because there's quite a lot on here, but this was a whole list of sources, information sources that we presented to a student in the online survey. And what I've grouped things into formal sources, which are sitting at the top, and then the informal sources at the bottom. Then there's 2 bars. You can see the darker bar, that's sources used. So students could select all the sources that they had used in looking for information about issues that impacted them when studying and living in Australia. And then the bottom bar, the lighter one, students were asked to select their top 3 most trusted sources when they were looking for information. Probably no surprise comes out here, but the education provider is the main source of information for students. And we see it's probably stronger amongst the university sector, whereas what we did see, English language students and those in the public vet or TAFE sector, less likely to trust their education provider compared to other sectors in New South Wales. The other thing that was, and also I think New South Wales, we did see education provider came through stronger. You saw when I talked about the profile, we had a higher proportion of university students. So that probably explains that a little bit. Also, higher engagement with just Australian media. Interesting though, and I've just sort of brought this up, and you can see where we've got the down arrows. Overall, when you sort of grouped these, and I've sort of put them under the local sources. So you've sort of got state, state, state government, international student, local council, and even local community or network. In New South Wales, was below the national average. I don't know exactly why, but my hypothesis here would be, most of these students surveyed were in Sydney. It's a big city, so again, it can be a little bit more fragmented for students compared to maybe some of the other states or territories where they're smaller, things are happening on a different level. So I think it's just something to be mindful of, and I know Toshi's going to cover off some of this of actual actions that have come into play to really draw through that community spirit as well. In terms of the specific government sources that students were looking for, and this was either at a federal, state or local level, we see digital channels come through as the most frequently used by students in New South Wales. And One point to note though, there was TAFE students were more likely to recall information via email newsletter, and we did see that across other jurisdictions as well. Interesting that students in New South Wales are less likely to recall seeing government advertising in general, whether this is internet, TV, outdoor, radio. Now again, we weren't able to drill down whether this was at a national level or a local level, but it was just that how they're engaging with government sources. I think the other point that we wanted to understand too was, well, how helpful was this government information about COVID-19? And the great news is majority said it was helpful, either very helpful or somewhat. However, and again, this is something that we saw not only in New South Wales, but across the nation, was students from China, South Korea, and Japan are less likely to say it's very helpful. And I think this again it just brings back to that importance of tailoring communications, thinking about not always having to, aligning with non-government channels, just to be able to make sure that we can get through messages or key communications to maybe some of those harder to reach groups. And again, we'll cover that off when we get to the recommendations. And then again, it's sort of coming through what would students prefer as their communication channel? Who's their go-to going forward about not only COVID, but other information, and how they want to be kept up to date. And you can see again there that the education institution is clearly New South Wales' top 3 preferences. Students were asked again to select just 3, as well as, of course, government plays a role here, as well as other digital channels. And I think that's the key thing. But it's not just one thing. They're using a range of different communication channels in how they want to be kept up to date. So that was a bit of a whirlwind. I know there was a lot of data there, but I just really wanted to recap on some of those key points of what we saw here. And, as I said, 2,500 international students in New South Wales responded to the survey. So this is just a great platform that we've been able to capture their student voice. Again, that diversity, not only of the students, who they are, what their situation is, but what that means then in terms of the emotions and reactions that they're experiencing. We have got positive sentiment, which is good for now, but I think, we were seeing back in July, a half felt the situation was getting worse. Now, what's going to be really interesting, as Toshi had mentioned, we're currently in field for the second quarter. So it's going to be great to be able to then track how students are feeling now. Has that changed or not? Those, I think we did talk about those more are experiencing personal issues, they're concerned about their own well-being, they're more at risk and they're less likely to see asked for support. The education providers, our preferred that's the students go-to for most cohorts, other than, as you talked about, maybe some of the vocational area. And then again, on a positive, 8 in 10 intend to continue their studies, which is great. And I think we've just got to continually reinforce that. But while there is a lot of positive there, again, we do have those students who are more at risk. And I think, it's just being mindful how maybe we'll be able to communicate with them and ensure that either they know they're supported or they're able to access information. And I've just brought some of those up, just some of them there. So we just don't lose sight of how do we go about in what that means in terms of communications for us for everyone in New South Wales. How do we communicate with these groups, not only those at risk, but for all our students, understanding just that diversity of what we've just gone through of of who they are. Now, there's a lot up here. I'm not going to go all through this because I think Toshi's actually going to address some of them. And I think I could speak ad nauseum about the diversity, but again, it's that importance of having a multifaceted approach, and in various different ways of channels, messaging, and being clear. And I think the other key point is about that showing empathy. As we saw, the education provider is key, as well as, also local groups, maybe it's more in local language. So again, it's thinking about some of these things, how to collaborate. And I think that's probably the key word of us as a whole, as a sector, working together, ensuring that we're supporting those messages that they're getting through, and also involving international student cohorts on our communications, sense checking that we have got that language right. Are we using the right language during a crisis to reflect their situation, which again goes to that earlier point about empathy. Also, these are major life issues going on. So maybe we can't just give them all the information at once. Maybe it's about a series of step-by-step information or communications, reinforcing where to go, how to access help, and also just being able to help, reinforce the reason why students should stay, and also maybe helping with their parents why they should stay in part of that, because we do see parental influence for some students. At least we saw future career prospects, always important, particularly for postgraduate students. So it's at least providing some clarity or addressing concerns around that. And then I think this is an important part, the last one, because yes, very good. The sector is very good at telling and featuring student stories. I think, again, it's just being mindful about what those stories are during times of crisis, when students are hurting, at their very personal level. So it may be about how they're working through things. It may be not just success stories, mix of outcomes, again, just proving that empathy and support. So that, as I said, was sort of sums it up, and happy we'll take questions at the very end. But as I said, that was the first wave of 4. Really excited to see what's coming through in our second wave, as I said, which is currently in field. The current topic that we're looking at is student support services, which is very timely, I believe, given what New South Wales has put into play. We're also, as a secondary focus, looking at employment, given that was such a key area of focus students were talking about in our first quarter. And again, thank you to anyone and everyone on this call. If you can be distributing and promoting the survey to your international student network, because the more students we can hear from, the better the overall feedback that we get, and the more that we can do with that information. So, as I said, I know that was a bit of a whirlwind, and I'm happy for anyone who wants to contact me again outside of this. But again, we've got time to talk about questions at the end. So I will finish there, grab a drink of water, and I'll hand back to you, Toshi. Oh, there we are.
Thanks so much, Lyndall, for that comprehensive look into the New South Wales portion of the results. A lot to take away there, a lot to digest, and we will be circulating these slides as a reminder. I'll now walk you through some of the current responses that the state government has in place and offer an update there, and touch on some of the forward priorities for us. But while I do that, please do continue to pop your questions, if you do have any for Lyndall, into that chat function, and we will have a little bit of time at the end of this webinar to address those if we don't address them already in the chat. So look, a big takeaway clearly from all of that data is that there is a lot of angst out there, and understandably so. And this is why the government has stepped in quite comprehensively and early to support international students. Now, we're very proud of the work that we've been doing here at Study New South Wales to support international students who are stranded here during these difficult times. And I'll walk through some of this COVID support now. A key feature of what we've been trying to do is to ensure that we can keep a roof over international students' heads. We know that clearly as brought out by this survey, a lot were having concerns around accommodation and cost of living. And so for us, it was important, not only as a health measure, but just to really ensure the well-being of students, that we were able to keep a roof over their heads. And that's why eligible students were able to apply and continue to be able to apply for up to 20 weeks of temporary crisis accommodation with approved student accommodation and homestay providers. Now, the application form is available through Service New South Wales, and we have links to those off our website. But if you are aware of international students who are struggling to pay the rent, have lost their job, are unable to go anywhere else and access any other means of support, please do encourage them to look into this option. We've been helping already thousands of international students in this way, and as I say, the scheme remains open for the time being, so please do let your students know about that. Next slide, please. As well, to help address those cost of living issues and to help ensure that our students aren't faced with too much food insecurity, the distribution of food hampers for free right across New South Wales has been an absolute priority for us, and this complements some of the initiatives that are already happening at the city level with the City of Sydney's partnership with Oz Harvest, and obviously the various charity organisations right across the state working to support our vulnerable communities. The free food hamper program has already distributed over 9,000 food hampers, and we are working with Food Bank to extend that arrangement to ensure that these hampers continue to remain available to international students right across the state. There's a central number that students can call to be directed to where their locust pickup point for these hampers. And again, that information is available on our website, and I'll be including that data at the end of this presentation. A big part, I think, of navigating the uncertainties and protecting ourselves during this period is to be aware of our rights, and which is why International Study New South Wales has been ensuring that international students are able to access legal support for free so that they can navigate the various challenges that they face during this period, particularly when it comes to employers, accommodation and education provider issues they might be facing. So we have boosted the resources that we make available to this International Student Legal Advice Service, which, as I say, is open to students across the state. But we've also we've made an app available for free to international students called My Legal Mates. Now, this app usually costs hundreds of dollars and delivers information to international students in a range of community languages. And Lyndall did touch on the importance of being able to tailor the advice services that we offer to our different communities. So the great thing here is that students can get access to information around accommodation, employment, and dealing with education providers and issues of sexual assault, which we understand through our legal advice service to be the key areas where students do seek advice. So please help us spread the word about this initiative and encourage your students to download this app. There's a very short form that they need to complete on our website, and then they get a free copy of this app for support. Now we've made a hotline available, which is open 24/7. Students can call and identify themselves as international students to be directed towards available sources of government, charity, and provider support, which are out there for international students, depending on the areas of need. Mental health obviously remains a priority for us, and the government has made a range of resources available to all New South Wales residents. So I encourage you to hop on the website to find out a little bit more about those. Next slide, please. Comms and getting this advice out has been an absolute priority for us. And as Lyndall, through a survey, has pointed out, the government still doesn't have the level of penetration that it would like to reach those international students and ensure that they are aware of the many initiatives that are out there for free looking to support them. So we would love your help in helping us amplify the messaging that we're putting out there. And we are disseminating this information through a range of digital channels. Our website, which is www.study.sydney, has a range of information there, including an International Student Welfare Services Hub with links to a lot of areas of support for international students. Our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, continue to be a great way to get information out. And we have recently launched WeChat to cut through to that Chinese group of students as well. Please do sign up to our mailing list and encourage your students to do the same. We send out regular newsletters with up-to-date information about advice and support. And this is, in fact, I think, how we've promoted this webinar. So please help us reach your students with some of these channels. Thanks, Lyndall. Next slide. So I will touch on a couple more things before we do wrap up, but I wanted to ensure that we did leave some time for questions. So I might hop into the chat function and see if there is anything there. And Lyndall, if you've spotted any questions or think there's anything else that's worth drawing out, yeah, please do feel free to hop in. As I say, we'll be making these slides available to all attendees. But if there are other questions, we're very happy to address them here. So it doesn't look like there's too much coming through at the moment.
And I think some of them have been answered. And, you know, look, thank you to Mark and Katie for just answering some of those sort of the logistical questions about the survey. But I think, you know, Toshi, it's wonderful to see these initiatives coming into place as well, because I think what's probably one of the things that came through to me was that our international students are just so resilient. Like, when you read the personal hardships some of them going on, but how they still feel positive towards Australia and their willingness to do, you know, they want Australia to succeed and they want to have success in their in terms of their education and experience here. And I think we just can't lose sight of that, of just how incredible they are. And it's just, I think, as I say, this survey focused on around COVID-19, but what I'm really pleased to see is all those support mechanisms that are going in place beyond just COVID, because it's the impact of it that I think that's what we're going to have. It's going to have that longer term impact, and just that collaboration that if anyone in the sector can be leveraging your communication channels, but even maybe having to, and dare I say it, maybe adapt some of it into sort of a slightly different, whether it be language or, you know, a different tone or anything, just to be able to make sure that the message gets through, but that you sort of have all that information available, I think is, and I think that's, you know, I'm hoping to see that it'll be really helpful to the students.
No, look, you're right. And we'd love to see, obviously, a pickup and a change there in a level of ability, I guess, to reach those students, to take confidence that the support that we are putting out there is actually reaching them, that they are aware of it. So again, just a big shout out to everyone on the line today. We really appreciate your support in helping us reach your students and making sure that they are aware of everything that's being put out there. My colleague Katie has very helpfully been putting up some links in the chat function to our website to direct you where those resources might be found. And yeah, we're really grateful for your assistance in disseminating that information. So look, I might touch on a couple more points before we wrap up. And clearly, if any more questions do come through, I'm happy to address them there as well. But look, our big call to action today is, as we've flagged, the second survey on tracking international student sentiment is currently out in the field and is open until the 9th of November, on Monday next week. We've made the survey link available through our Facebook channel, Twitter and Instagram. And Katie has kindly also put up a link in the chat function as to where those resources are available, if you can help share those with your students. And again, we'd love to ensure that New South Wales gets a good level of response so that we can continue to use this information to inform our programs. We led the way in the first survey, and I hope we can continue to do so again with this
I'll just
second
jump in
survey.
there, Toshi. I'll say you've got 640 responses at the moment for New South Wales. So
we can do better.
We can do better.
So yeah, still a lot of room there to hit the 2,500 mark that we had before. So please do help us put that out. And as I say, we'll be making those survey results available to you again in this format with a webinar and sharing slides to help you as well inform your programs. Next slide, please. So yeah, just turning towards the future and some of the other initiatives that are out there and that are being informed by these findings. Clearly, the return of international students is something that's on all our minds, and it continues to be a priority for the government. They've gone on the record. We have gone on the record as saying that it's something that we're working towards. The pressure that we're under in terms of carrying the national load, I suppose, of returning residents has made things a little bit more difficult for us to plan here. But I do believe an announcement has gone out today saying that we're opening our borders with Victoria, which is a good news, and it will help relieve that load and make things a little bit easier to bring students in within our existing capacity. So something we're looking forward to. There aren't any formal plans out there yet, but rest assured that it is something that we are continuing to work on with the sector, Commonwealth and other partners. When it comes to sharing student stories and managing that social license, helping ensure that the community is aware of the valuable contribution that international students make, we've found that our international student awards, which are held each year, are a wonderful source of information and advocacy, I suppose, to share with our domestic constituents just how important the international student contribution is to our communities. These students who go above and beyond to give back to their communities through volunteering and other means, as you say, paint a picture of not only a very resilient student population, but as well one that is here to help their peers and others in the community. So this year we will again be hosting those awards. For COVID reasons, of course, they won't be as big in person, but we will be making sure that we do live stream the event online. So tune in on the 8th of December to find out more, and we'll be promoting our finalists between now and then. The partner projects grants that we deliver each year are a wonderful example of our collaboration and partnership with the sector. And we will be very soon announcing new projects to support and enhance the international student experience here in New South Wales, projects around employability, entrepreneurship, dealing with international student safety and well-being will all be part of this new program of support for international students. So please, we'll keep you posted on that through our news channels. And as I say, we'll be looking to address some of those key areas of concern that the July survey teased out for international students. With summer around the corner, beach safety is something that we are all mindful of, and there'll be, we're launching a video series around water safety for international students, which will provide some more resources for our education providers to engage students on this important area of student well-being. And clearly, yes, we'll be continuing to deliver a range of other marketing events and comms to reach our international students and to support them. And again, we understand just how important you as the sector, as industry, as providers are in helping us reach those students. So thanks in advance for all your help in reaching out to them. Together, we can help them. So last slide there, Lyndall, if that's all right. Again, these are our channels. Please help us sign up more international students to these channels, because that way we can help reach them with our programs. All our programs are free. They're all designed to support international students and addressing those key areas of concerns we discussed. So thanks in advance for your help in helping us amplify our messaging. Thanks for your help in trying to reach the students with the second survey, and for your attention today. Now, I'll just hop in and check the chat function one last time to see if there's anything in there that we might want to address.
No, everyone's been very nice and not asking any tricky questions.
There you have it. So look, we're a little bit in advance of time, but I know how busy everyone is. So again, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. We'll be sharing these slides with everyone. Hope they are of value to you. Look forward to catching up with you again for the second installment of the November results when they're available. And again, we'll be using our EDM and other channels to invite people to these sessions. So Lyndall, again, thank you very much. And to Mark as well for managing this survey and for coming in to present to our sector. Yeah, as I say, look forward to catching up with everyone again very soon.
Great. Thanks, Toshi. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. All the best.
Bye.